A while ago, I made a video of the most obscure consoles in history, in which I mentioned one console where I said it deserved its own video. I also made a sequel to that video which you should definitely check out. And the reason for this console to deserve its own video is a merit on its own. But why? I mean, if it's so obscure, what can I actually tell you about this old gadget that went to history as a forgotten piece of old hardware? Well, believe it or not, this piece of history is actually more important than you think. When we talk about old video game consoles, some people might mention the Odyssey or the Atari 2600 as the oldest, and the newer generations would say that the PS3 is vintage enough, which depresses me because it reminds me of how old I'm getting. But even though the Odyssey was the very first commercial video game console ever created based on an oscilloscope which replicated a game of table tennis, the true first modern console to ever be released on the market wasn't the Atari 2600, but the Fairchild Channel F instead by merely a year. And if that wasn't enough, it was the very first console to have swappable cartridges, a concept that the Atari would adopt a year later. This is the core concept that would later be used in later generations such as the Commodore 64, the NES and others. So that must mean that the Fairchild Channel F was a great console then, even by that time standards, right? Well, yes, but no. When you look at it from a technical level, it is the most revolutionary console to have ever existed because it defined the modern standard for video games until digital games took the market by surprise. But in order to make a console viable or interesting, it needs to be entertaining and have content for the people to purchase it. Imagine this. It's the late 70s and any form of entertainment came from movies and TV. If you wanted to play a game, you would play a sport or go to a bowling alley. The closest thing to an arcade were pinballs. There wasn't any real conception of video games, meaning a game you could play on a computerized device. Remember that computers were not even affordable or made for home use until the mid-80s. How can you bring a concept of a simple game to be played at home in a digital format? Well, this is the part where we introduce, in my opinion, the second most important figure in gaming history. You see, Ralph Baer was the inventor of the very first Odyssey, and many people put Todd Howard, Hideo Kojima, Shigeru Miyamoto, or even Gabe Newell as the most important figures in gaming history to this day. I dare to say that the man who made the home console market possible was the one and only Jerry Lawson. This electronic engineer and privileged mind, born on December 1st of 1940 in Brooklyn, New York, is considered to this day the father of video game cartridges. After Lawson was made chief hardware engineer and director of engineering and marketing for Fairchild's video game division, where they would release the Fairchild Channel F in 1976, a year before the Atari 2600 entered the market. Lawson and his team refined and improved technology developed at Alpex that allowed games to be stored as software on removable ROM cartridges. This could be inserted and removed repeatedly from the console unit without any danger of electric shocks. This would allow users to buy a library of games and provided a new revenue stream for the console manufacturers throughout sales of these games. Do you see how important this console is? The modularity of console cartridges would be a model for future generations to come until the first introduction of CDs. His team's vision made such a significant impact that it would basically pave the road for the Titanic market that would come years later. But wait, there's even more stuff to talk about here. The Channel F console featured a variety of controls, including a new 8-way joystick designed by Lawson and a pause button, which was a first for a home video game console. A pause button. Remember, this is 1976, where there were literally no conceptions of what video games could or could not be. This man and his team envisioned an environment in which any future gamer would find themselves in need to stop the game, do something urgent, and then come back and resume where they left off. Also, funny note here, while he was with Fairchild, Lawson was a member of the Homebrew Computer Club, a group of early computer hobbyists that included several who became well known, including Apple founders Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Lawson noted that he interviewed Wozniak for a position at Fairchild, but did not hire him. We all know what happened next. But anyway, back to the main topic. If the Fairchild Channel F was so revolutionary, literally and not metaphorically speaking, why did it fail? Well, you know when you tell a joke in class and nobody cares, but that annoying kid says it louder and everyone laughs? This happened with Apple and Microsoft back in the day, and Fairchild Channel F would meet the same fate with Atari 2600 a year later. The Fairchild Channel F ended up selling a total of 350,000 units in its lifespan, which doesn't seem too bad for a pioneer product, right? Well, the Atari sold over 30 million in its entire lifespan until the year 2004. While the Fairchild Channel F lasted until 1983, its competitor lasted almost 30 years in the market, even after it was vastly surpassed by higher quality consoles. And it wasn't a matter of price either, as both the Fairchild Channel F and the Atari 2600 sold at the same retail price of $169.95, equivalent of $920 in 2023 due to inflation. Then, what could be the reason that made the Fairchild Channel F fail? Well, it is not entirely sure, but a lot of theories are brought up to this day. Some people speculate that it was better marketing to say Atari than Fairchild, as it was easier and worldwide friendlier to mention. Others claim that it was the variety, or lack of, games that forced its downfall. Other people say that since it was 1976, the Fairchild laid the foundation for the gaming market, while the Atari took full advantage of it by offering a better or more diverse product when it comes to its repertoire of games. There's also the theory that since Atari was already doing great on its own, the real competitors of its time were the Intellivision and ColecoVision, consoles that were launched years later and still didn't manage to equalize the magnitude of the Atari, leaving Fairchild forgotten and obscure. Also, the gaming market crash of 1983 meant the downfall of multiple companies due to the excessive number of games available, but no real quality control for them. This is the same year where the Fairchild was discontinued. The Fairchild Channel F had beaten the Atari 2600 to the market, but once the 2600 was released, sales of the Channel F fell, attributed to the types of games that were offered. Most of the Channel F titles were slow-paced educational and intellectual games, compared to the action-driven games that launched with the Atari. Even with the redesigned Channel F2 in 1978, Fairchild was unable to meet the sales that the Atari 2600 and its games were generating. By the time the Fairchild sold the technology to Circon in 1979, around 350,000 total units had been sold. Jerry left Fairchild in 1980 and founded his own company, VideoSoft, which was responsible of developing multiple video games for different consoles. Jerry remains as a testimony of a vision that endured the test of time, as his ideas were not only re-implemented but reinvented over and over again to this day. It's the vision of a man with imagination, intellect and passion that brought life to this fascinating, tragic, infuriating and yet wonderful world that's called the video game market. Around 2003, Jerry started having complications from diabetes, losing the use of one leg and sight from one eye. On April 9, 2011, about 1 month after being honored by the International Game Developers Association (IGDA), he died of complications from diabetes. At the time of his death, he resided in Santa Clara, California, and was survived by his wife Catherine, 2 children, and his brothers. But his memory remains to this day. Companies like Microsoft, Google, and Black Enterprise remember his legacy to this day. His work has inspired many developers, programmers, engineers, and young students all over the globe. Of course, the Fairchild Channel F may have failed in the market. The numbers don't lie. But when you dig deeper into the world of video games, it's clear to say that the closer you get to the core of every modern piece of hardware, every single one of them leads back to this piece of technology. It may not have made the numbers, but boy, it truly made history. This has been Juano, and thank you for watching.